What's up? Brian Tong here, and this is my review for the new Apple Watch Series 7. And if you're just looking at this thing on my wrist from a distance, it looks exactly like a Series 4 or 5 or 6, so why would it be worth upgrading? Well, the Apple Watch is one of my favorite Apple devices of all time, but I've skipped on the Series 5, I've skipped on the Series 6 because it's just that good. So I own a Series 4, and going into this review, I just went into it with the mindset thinking, hey, how different can this Series 7 really be? You know, I've been leaning towards not upgrading, and whatever leaks are out there, they're not gonna influence the decision that I make when it comes to upgrading because those things don't exist. So I haven't upgraded in 3 years, and my Series 4, this thing has shown no signs of slowing down. So will the Series 7, finally open my wallet, and who else does an upgrade make sense for? Now, first, for full disclosure, Apple did provide this Series 7 for me for review, and I'm gonna be sending it right back to them when I'm done, but this is one of their new colors. This is the green aluminum case that came with it. This also has the matching band on it. They provided a solo loop, and they also sent me the latest Nike Sport loop that has the swoosh and then the Nike logos on the band. You know, I am digging this forest green color. It's cool. It can look sometimes, even depending on like how bright it is in the room, it can look black at times, but look, honestly, I'm a stainless steel guy, but I do like the entire lineup of colors, and I've heard some people complain about Starlight because it's just not silver enough or it's not gold enough and it's somewhere in between. And yes, that's exactly what it is, somewhere in between. So look, I think Apple's actually kind of being clever and tricky about this. If you want a more, gold looking watch or silver looking watch, you can bump up to the higher expensive material. So do with that what you want. Now, the new Series 7 is slightly larger at 41 and 45 millimeters. That's based on what they look like in height versus the 40 and 44 for the previous generations. Now, I have the 45 millimeter one here, but physically, if I grab, let's see, next to like a Series 6 here, if you kind of look at these really close, you can't see a physical difference. I mean, these look at every angle, they look the same, other than the fact that if you look really closely, you have the speaker grill here. It's a single slot on the Series 7 versus 2 slots that you'll find on the Series 4, 5, and 6. Now, I even wore this thing just around on a weekend out of town, and not a single person noticed that this was a Series 7. Nobody did. So if you're that person that likes the tech attention when you get new things, you know who you are. You want everyone to be like, oh, is that the new? No, sorry, it's not gonna happen here with the Series 7. But I'd be the first to tell you also, when Apple announced its new 20% larger screen with a smaller bezel, I was not blown away by it. I was just thinking, okay, I'll wait and see. And I'm fine with my Series 4 screen. Always on, never made a big difference for me. Some people are like, how, Brian? But by the time I turned it, it just didn't make a difference. So maybe it's gonna be the faster charging that might make me upgrade after all these years. But right when I saw this, I was like, okay, I put it on and I saw the passcode buttons, and it just made me feel like I had this maybe like a 47 or 48 millimeter watch face, but I didn't. And, over time, I think really after using it about for a week now, I have grown to absolutely love this bigger display. And what I think is important here is that they have adapted the entire UI from the buttons, the sizing, and they've just really taken advantage of this additional space. Even though you might think, oh, there's not that much space, you can just see it and you can feel it. So I lined up a Series 3, Series 6, and a Series 7 side by side so you can see the differences in the displays for yourself. The Series 7, this is 50% larger than the Series 3 with its 4.5 millimeter border. That is just a huge difference. Honestly, you might as well just stop this video, go upgrade your Series 3 or earlier right now, and then come back. The Series 7 is 20% larger than the Series 6 with its 3 millimeter border, and the Series 7 has a 1.7 millimeter border. And I know it's a little more subtle, but you can see the difference. Now, passcode buttons and control center buttons are 13% bigger. I could just tell this right away. The calculator buttons are 12% larger on the Series 7 versus the Series 6, and I'm just showing you off some differences that you can actually see. You can fit 50% more text on the Series 7 in a message or email compared to the Series 6, and I don't read email on my Apple Watch, and the larger screen, it didn't encourage me to do that more, but it did come in handy, especially with text messages. Okay, after I showed that, you might not be blown away. Like I said, I wasn't at first, but as I just kept using this, I loved how little things kind of started all adding up for me. You can really see the difference when you're looking at photos. So if I go to here to something like photos, and if you compare them side by side, you can start seeing where the difference of the bezels are. But honestly, I'm looking at this right now. This might be the only time I look at it. Don't look too hard at these pictures, but how often am I looking at photos on my Apple Watch? I'm just not. But Apple, they got really smart by making two specific watch faces that you can only use on the Series 7 that take advantage of this new screen and this real estate and design. So this first one is contour. This is the face that I have right now. And it's really the only watch face that goes all the way around to the edges. And then even as you tilt it a little bit, it'll be hard. I'm gonna have to catch it on camera closer, but it showcases this refractive edge, which gives it the ever so slightest subtle like wraparound feature. I mean, you really got to look at it with that contour screen on. And yes, sure, it's there. What's fun about this watch face though is, again, it goes all the way to the edges. You can interact with it. So when I hit the sides, it kind of does this bump animation. I can even play with the digital crown. And as I move the dial around, you can see it kind of move and morph. Now, no one's going to be doing this all the time, but it changes colors. You can do that if you want to customize this. You can even add a couple of complications to make it unique so that it gives you more information as well. But this is the watch face that makes the Series 7 feel bigger. Now, the other Series 7 specific watch face, this is called Modular Duo, and that allows you to show off two complications that stretch across the watch face, two of them kind of in a row on top of each other, so you can see a lot more information. And what I love about these is that these two watch faces are exclusive to the Series 7. They take full advantage of its larger screen. And look, bigger is always going to be better. I mean, did I kind of just say that size matters without saying that size matters? But then, okay, I actually just said size matters. It matters here. The screen is also 70% brighter when you have your wrist down, which makes it a lot easier for all my always-on friends. Like, you are like, yes, thank you. It does make it easier to see from a distance. But to me, we need more watch faces like these two that just really use all the screen real estate, and it really kind of does showcase that, hey, you have a larger watch face, because sometimes some of the other ones, although they may appear large in size, because they're set with like a black background, it may not be as apparent that they are really larger watch faces. But specifically with Contour and Modular Duo, you can really see like, okay, this is a larger watch face. So, okay, now you're maybe thinking, great, this is still a larger screen, but not by that much. Well, for me, I care about the functional stuff above anything else. And the thing that surprised and has really kind of changed how I use my Apple Watch is the new QWERTY keyboard that is only on the Series 7. Now, this was a feature I pretty much dismissed. I poo-pooed it when it was announced, and I didn't think that I'd use it at all until I did, because up until now, look, I use an LTE Apple Watch when I'm working out, or sometimes I'm on the go and I just don't want my phone on me. And I've been let down too many times by that cumbersome scribble, which, was fun at first, and then it took too long, especially if you made like a mistake. You don't want to have to like re-scribble these words. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. So I just stopped using it. I stopped doing it. Now, Siri voice translation is good enough-ish, and it gets the job done at times for simpler responses, but still was not reliable enough for me either. But now here, swiping around on this QWERTY keyboard, this has just become, the most accurate of the options available for me. This is more accurate than I thought. It's become my go-to method for messaging with my Apple Watch when I'm working out or on the go. Apple, they like to call it quick path. I just call it swiping. And with its predictive machine learning, it was about, I guess I would say 90% accurate, or even more for me. And maybe it's because, I have these small pointer fingers. It's easier to navigate, but you see these tiny letters, you just kind of go for it. But it brought a new functionality that changes. It absolutely just changes how I use the Apple Watch. And I realize that your experience might be different if you have large sausage fingers. I mean, even typing letter by letter for me worked well. It looks small, but I just went for it, and I was impressed by the results. In fact, I think that I type and swipe more accurately on the Apple Watch than I do on my phone, where maybe I'm just plucking away with my thumbs and I don't care. And people who know me, they know how bad I am at that on my phone. Now, one thing that I really hope they fix, though, is that as you're using this QWERTY keyboard, if you end up writing a longer message, which I do, the words, they scroll up and move off the screen, and you have to use the digital crown to scroll down and see your entire message if you want to make any changes. Now, I first thought that there was no way to do it, and I just fiddled around. So I hope that they can give me the option to just kind of use my finger and swipe up on that top to scroll through that message as I create longer format stuff with this new QWERTY keyboard. Just let me touch the top of the screen in the future to get me access to that space. And people, come on, they're rarely using the digital crown as it is, so just make it straightforward. Let's just touch the screen directly. But I just did not think that this was gonna be one of the highlights of my experience with the Series 7, but hey, here we are, the QWERTY keyboard, it's great. Now the larger display, right? The larger UI, the larger watch faces, and the new functionality, these are all pieces that just kind of added up for me to make it more than a display that is just 20% larger. That's how I thought about it going into it, but after using it for a week, I think you just really need to try it for yourself if you're on the fence, but this new display just made a difference for me. Now Apple, they also really used the Apple Watch display to its fullest, and I love the iPad mini, I really do, but I can't say that they did the same for the mini. Ouch, sorry guys. All right, the other feature that will change how I use this is the new faster charging system. It's a magnetic fast charge via a USB-C cable, so that's gonna be new. You're gonna get 80% charge in 45 minutes. The Series 6 gets an 80% charge in an hour, so it charges 33% faster. Now the cable is a USB-C cable, but the charging puck itself is covered in this more, I guess, dull brushed metal texture instead of the shiny one from every other Apple Watch before it. So fast charging, it's only available on the Series 7, but you can use the same cable that came with the Series 7 and use it on other earlier Apple Watch models, but it's only going to charge them at their standard rate. You can also use the Series 7 with earlier cables from those Apple Watches, but you're only going to get these slower 80% and 60-minute speed. And then if you're curious, the MagSafe Duo, this is not capable of the faster charging speeds, just the standard rate as well. Now fast charging, for me, it actually turned out to not be as big of a game changer as I hoped for. I mean, I honestly thought that would be the reason why I might upgrade. And this watch, it still gets 18 hours a day. So the battery on this is still pretty much the same. I always ended up with around that 20 to 30% charge before I go to sleep. So it still does last me through the day. And you know, if I forget to charge the next morning, it's still gonna die around that same 11 a.m.-ish time period. I think it might last maybe a tad bit more, but that might just be because, hey, this is a new watch that isn't 3 years old like my Series 4. But overall, with my normal usage patterns, its battery acted the same. And fast charging does come in handy if, hey, you want to get a little more juice than maybe you used to right before you're heading out. You just kind of plop it on the charger as you're getting ready. That does help. And I think it's a nice to have. And I will always want a better version of a feature, whatever it is. So yeah, fast charging, it's nice. But let's look a little forward, and the biggest improvement that they can make here on the Apple Watch to me is still battery life. Even if this watch does so many things already, which it does, you know, it has a new S7 system in package, but it's using the same processor from the Series 6 Apple Watch. So what's new is the shape of the package that was made to fit this new slightly larger body. The Apple Watch also isn't about getting more speed. To me, it doesn't need to get faster right now. It's about just being more power efficient so we can squeeze more battery life from this. And that's the biggest change that I'm hoping for moving forward. Also, Apple touts this Apple Watch Series 7 as their most crack resistant watch face. Now this front crystal, this is gonna be 50% thicker, and then they've redesigned it with a flat base. Think of this like glass piece on top. When it's set inside here, the base is completely flat. So that's gonna make it sturdier and just more resistant to cracks. Now, if you aren't familiar already, the Apple Watch itself uses two types of glass, depending on the model. The aluminum watches use Ion X glass, which is similar to Gorilla Glass used in smartphone screens. And then the stainless steel and titanium ones use a sapphire crystal glass, which is the same material found in Rolex and Breitling watches. But they both have the same crack resistance regardless of the material. There's nothing different about the treatment of the glass, but this new shape and thickness of the glass for both the Ion X and sapphire crystal glass watches is where the improvements have been made. Now I know multiple people who just like banged their watch or dropped it and the Apple Watch completely cracked. So it's just going to be a matter of time. We're just going to have to see how much this makes a difference over the long haul. Now, this also has IP6X dust resistance. That's completely dust tight, so there's no way that it can get inside here. And then it's also swim proof with WR50 resistance, which can withstand swimming, but it's not meant for intense activities like scuba diving or water skiing. The Series 7 gets no new health sensors at all this generation. So in case you're wondering, it still has heart rate and blood oxygen. A lot of people are waiting on maybe new health sensors on the Apple Watch. Blood sugar monitoring, I mean, that is still the holy grail that everyone's hoping for, but that's still more complex and honestly still a way out. But people were hoping even, maybe get something new like blood pressure or body composition. Well, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4, that has that right now, but neither of those are in the Series 7. But at the same time, it's still the most tightly integrated system for tracking your overall activity and then motivating you by closing those rings. It works directly with Apple Fitness Plus with your real-time metrics tracked on screen. And then you have this diversity of classes that has just exploded in the past year. I mean, they just got Pilates. I've never tried Pilates. I think I'm going to try it. Also, Apple's Breathe app. This has evolved and is now called Mindfulness to include reflection and breathing exercises. And then Apple Fitness Plus members, you have an added guided meditations that are also on the Apple Watch. It's also able to sync directly to third-party apps and then pair and sync with fitness systems like your Peloton bike, and then there are many classes to track your progress there, or even newer systems like the Tempo that also syncs to track your heart rate and fitness metrics in real time with the Apple Watch. So obviously the Apple Watch does so many things, but it can still be a lot better. For me, I've been saying this as far back as the Series 4, and I think there's been a larger swell of people being more vocal about it. It is time for the Apple Watch to work independently of the iPhone. Let customers create something like an iCloud account and set up the watch online through a web portal. That's pretty easy. And then you can lure them into the ecosystem with services that work with it. The Apple Watch has roughly a 30% market penetration just for current iPhone owners. So just imagine if they open that up to everyone. It has its own LTE connection option. It has its own app store. You don't need the phone anymore for that. So there's no reason this couldn't work. I mean, the world's best smartwatch would absolutely explode, and all that's really holding them back from doing it is software. You hear a lot of people casually saying, it looks like the same Apple Watch. Well, flipping the switch to make it completely independent of the iPhone, that would have been a killer feature for this generation. Now, the next leap also will be whenever the next significant health sensor comes to it, and obviously a more efficient processor that can give us even more battery life on a device that is this small. Those are all things that can make it better in the future. But what is my verdict on the Apple Watch Series 7 today? Well, even if this is one of my favorite Apple devices, it's been so good that it never did enough for me to, just say, oh, I gotta have the always on screen. No, I gotta have the blood oxygen sensor now. That didn't either. Those things didn't change how I fundamentally used this day to day. But out of all the years I didn't think I'd upgrade, I'm gonna make the jump to the Series 7. This new display and the way it's utilized, it is just too good. And I think it's the type of feature that is gonna stand out to you the more you use it in all its different ways. But if you don't, then maybe it's not worth the upgrade for you. That's okay. Now, if you have a Series 3 or earlier and you're on the fence, to me, this is just a no-brainer to upgrade for all of you watching if you have the resources. With this new screen and faster processor for Series 3 and earlier, you're gonna feel like you're in a new era. Like, you just welcome to the future. But if you're still completely happy with your Apple Watch, there's absolutely no need to upgrade at all. Now, if you're on a Series 4, 5, or 6 before this review, the rational consumer inside of me was telling me, you probably don't need to upgrade. And I don't. But then the tech fan inside of me who has waited 3 years with a Series 4 and still thought I probably wouldn't upgrade, well, he just had his mind changed after using it for a week with its screen and QWERTY keyboard. That not only surprised me, but fundamentally changed how I used it. Series 5 and 6 users, you definitely don't need to, but ooh, you might want to. I mean, you're gonna have to reconsider. Just try it out. And for those of you who upgrade every year, no matter what, hey, good for you. So to answer your question, yes, I am absolutely upgrading to the Apple Watch Series 7. Not this green one. I'm gonna go stainless steel. But again, I'm coming from a Series 4, and Apple You know what you really need to do? You need to make more watch faces specifically for the Series 7 because seriously, it's part of the reason why I'm upgrading too. And that's a good Apple.